All right. Welcome back, everyone, to Terraform time here on the PagerDuty Twitch channel. I'm joined today by Andreas Lundgren, a software developer at Storytel. Andreas, welcome to the stream today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. He's going to talk to us about a setup that he did with Terraform and GCP and PagerDuty. But before we jump into that, we want to talk about a few different events that are coming up and a few things that are ongoing here at PagerDuty and on the PagerDuty Twitch channels. This Terraform show is usually on Mondays at 4 p.m. Eastern. Today, we're Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Because Andreas is in Sweden and 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific is a little late in Sweden. So we wanted Andreas to join us. And so we are at a special time here today. But you can usually find us on Twitch talking about Terraform at 1 p.m. Pacific on Mondays. We also have another show, PagerDuty Garage, where Mandy Walls talks about all things PagerDuty API. And so on the beginning of the week and at the end of the week, Mandy will jump into various topics like maybe webhooks or working with the events API. What was the one she was doing recently? I think she was doing app event transformers or change event transformers. And so she digs into something that usually is a question found on the community, the PagerDuty community at community.pagerduty.com. And she'll dig into one of the questions that folks have about the PagerDuty API. So tune in then. You can find us again on Twitch at the PagerDuty channel, but also PD community. So those are some of our things we have on Twitch. Also, our team has a podcast called Page It to the Limit. We talk about running software in production. We're talking to all sorts of folks across the software industry who have various experiences, various roles, and various stories. And so come share some or listen to some stories that are shared. You can also come share, actually. If you're interested in being on the show, reach out to us. We'd be happy to have you on as a guest, where we can have conversations about how you run software in production or various aspects of it. So you can find us on any of your podcast streaming services, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or whatever the platforms you use, Spotify. You can find us at Page It to the Limit. And finally, we have our customer conference coming up rapidly. It's coming up in June. We'll be in person at these 3 locations: in San Francisco on June 7th, Sydney, Australia, June 15th, London, England on June 21st. You can register at that QR code there on the screen, where you can join us live, where we talk about all things PagerDuty, things that are coming in the product, and then also just various topics that are important to those of us who are honestly using or operating unplanned work. That's the kind of work that we do here at PagerDuty, right? We get a hold of you when there's something happening that was not expected. And so that's those are the various topics we'll be talking about. So in person at those 3 locations. We're also going to be online, so you can register for that as well. So that's PagerDuty Summit. I know I'll be there at least at 2 of the locations. I think I'm going to be in London and in San Francisco, and we'll have folks in Sydney as well. So that'll be a good time there at Summit. And what we got going on here. So today we have Andreas Lundgren. He's, as I mentioned, software engineer at Storytel. And Andreas recently, let me get my screen. My cursor's not coming back. There we go. Stop sharing screen. So yeah, so Andreas is a software engineer at Storytel, where they essentially progressed from a small operation to a much larger operation. They had to adopt some principles of full service ownership. And to do that, they utilized Terraform, the PagerDuty Terraform provider, and then also expanding use of PagerDuty, but also GCP. And correct me if I'm wrong, Andreas, something you had also had something to do with Stackdriver in there as well, right?
Yeah, Stackdriver is really the product back in the old days bought by GCP. So there, the word Stackdriver is still stuck. It's still there.
Got it. Okay.
Now it's actually Google Cloud Platform.
All right. Okay.
So maybe you can use Stackdriver alone. I don't know actually if it's still a product, but
I admittedly I'm not as familiar with Stackdriver, so I don't really know where I would use it. So we'll just talk about Google Cloud Provider as a product itself. So talk about where it started. Like how were you operating, and then what caused you to need to make a change as you were expanding your operation there at Storytel?
basically when I started on Storytel, everyone were on call, every backend developer, but it was just 7 of us. Then now we are closer to 200, and that happens, as you know, gradually. So the 7 of us just hold the fortress. In the end, it was 5 of us. But already a year ago, we started to realize that there are so many ins and outs of this platform. It's impossible for us to manage incidents. So what should we do about it? And we set up concepts of second line support, but they were not mandatory, because basically if you're obligated to pay, then you're on call, and that settles different contracts and payments. So we basically just tried to call people, and if they answered, they got a bonus, an activation bonus.
There you go.
Worked.
You dangled the carrot of some extra money. It's like, hey, if you answer this call, we'll give you some. There you go.
And we were too large for that. I think we have today plus 2 million customers in 20 countries. But all companies are, the facade is great, and behind you're always 1 year chasing your own business, kind of. So we were chasing our own initiatives to get caught up by ourselves and to get caught up by our business. And now finally this winter we started to roll out this, how do we want on call to really look like, and take responsibilities for all parts of the platform 24/7.
And so what did you do to, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think all of us, or all organizations, have gone through a similar type of transformation, where when you're a small operation, you are operating, like you said, you say 7 people, 9 people, like 7 to 9 people. I mean, that's under 10 people. I mean, everyone's going to be doing lots of different jobs. And so it makes sense at that point that people are all on call. But once you start getting big enough, it's going to wear people out, right? I mean, that's going to be not healthy for people individually, and then for the company as a whole. So how talk about that full service ownership idea that you adopted to help mitigate that that toil.
So the first interesting thing is that it was impossible to recruit for this role, because as soon we got to the point, what am I actually responsible for, we said everything. So what they do in Stockholm or Copenhagen or Umeå or Karlstad or Lund, you're responsible for it. And what backup do I have? Well, voluntary basis. So it took, you needed to be an old timer to dare to take it. Because when you've been around for too long, people were happy whatever you did, but it was rough. So first we tried to get, so full system ownership is nice, but the first thing we need to pin down that many companies don't have is owners. Who is, what are you owning? If you're responsible for the things you own, you need to own them. And we had tons of assets, everything. We had virtual machines, pub/sub topics, databases, and none of them really had explicit owner. Everyone knew who dealt with that. Oh, it's that guy over there. He commits to this GitHub repo, so he owns it. But we didn't have it specified. So during the autumn, we built a framework for tracking owners of assets. And that's like a prerequisite to have full system ownership. And after that, I mean, we're still struggling. That's a never-ending story. There are so many assets that are unclaimed, old cron jobs running that, the guy who built it is no longer at the company. Who owns it? We don't know. So who's going to be on call for it? Well, we don't know, but we're struggling and we're slowly get there. So then we really started to work with its full system ownership. You build it, you run it, you operate it, all within the teams. And that calls for a very special setup. It's a big change.
No, it makes sense. And I think every software company ever has always had And we'll always have, who built this? Oh, so-and-so built it, and they've been gone for 2 years, and it's just been running, and they didn't really plan on it running forever. And so it's like, yeah, well, now we rely on it, sort of thing. Yeah.
We also had the old monolith. So one is the things that are small and no one owns, and then we have the old monolith. We tried to break out microservices from it, and we got pretty far. Now it's a small core left, but who owns that? There are several teams having code running in there. So there were two chunks basically: the small things that no one remembers, and the big things that many use. Also, libraries goes in there. So GitHub libraries. Every company that struggled with the log4j issue last autumn knows that who is updating this library, who owns this GitHub repo. Well, I don't know.
Right. I don't know about that dependency.
Right. So someone just have to fix it. But now we're tagging repos is also an asset that has an owner.
So how did you divide up the monolith then? Was it just by the features of the people who are in charge of the different microservices, or what?
So we did a big chunk a couple of years ago to bring out. So the monolith was running on premise kind of, but a local provider in Stockholm, and we started to lift features to Google Cloud Platform. I work at Storytel, so we do books. We are an audiobook company, also ebooks. We recently just joined force with AmericanAudiobooks.com and are present in quite many countries. So the first thing we did was to lift the parts where we ingest books in our platform, because books coming in is it's very unstructured data. Publishers are not data science.
No.
So if two authors has the same name, it's super hard to just separate them.
Yeah.
All of that. So we
how
build.
How do you separate that, by the way?
How do you separate?
Right.
You try to match it with what publishers they used to work for. You try to strip off diacritics and honorary title. One author becomes a doctor, so he's now PhD, Scott McAllister. So how do you correlate those two? It's a science of its own. But
okay.
we left the part ingesting the books to Google Cloud. And then we've been breaking out and building new features. And then we were hoping to get rid of the monolith, but we really didn't. So we just lift it up in the cloud as a microservice. It's a macro service now, but it's running there in Kubernetes along with everyone else.
Wow.
So now it's at least a bit easier to get in.
I've yet, I hope I don't give away too many secrets of too many companies I've worked at, but I've yet to see a company completely get rid of their monolith, right? Like there's always that bit that's just like, no, we can't. If we start changing this thing, it's going to cause like so many chain reactions. And so it's like, let's just put it over here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's an interesting dilemma of its own, but now at least it has an owner. It was one team that has the most there, so they really stepped up and say, okay, we take it. So now they run that.
So you have owners defined on each of your different features and in your different services and systems. And so that's kind of that first step, right? Making clear definitions of ownership.
Exactly.
What was the next step for you all?
So what we did with the ownership is that we didn't tag assets directly with the team, but we divided assets into systems. So we have about 100 systems, and the systems it's not a super good definition, but one system has an owner, so you own a system. And there is a lot of tagging of assets, so you don't want to move them between systems, but you can move systems between teams. I did not expect us to end up with 100 systems, but the definition was not very clear. So when we gave out to the teams to define their system, we ended up with 100 plus. And these 100 systems now have an owner. And for example, all our Kubernetes workloads are now in a system. So the next step was to reflect that in PagerDuty. And this is also before we had a setup that I think it's very common. We had two services. So one was the high urgency service and the other one was the low urgency service. If you put an incident on the high urgency service, it called for us. If on the low urgency service, it's posted to a Slack channel, basically. So now we changed that. So we automatically extract all the 100 systems we have and their owners, and we put them in PagerDuty with the Terraform. So the system is really our foundations about how to handle ownership and how to also then be able to track what you own. Full system ownership outside office hours is built upon those systems. Some systems have high availability requirements, others do not. So we also tune the PagerDuty setup based on the kind of the SLO. It's not really an SLO. We just have a Boolean. We're working on the SLOs, but that's trickier than what you think when you start to look into it.
That's another step down the road.
That's another step. Well, I'm fairly confident we will take that step this year.
Nice.
There is big chunk left of this year.
It's true. We're still early in the year.
Hmm.
So talk about how Terraform helped with that step. You kind of you talked about how you used Terraform and to expand what you needed to do with PagerDuty. What resources did you manage with Terraform, and how did that help with you all?
So the first thing we did was to take this 100. Now I think we're 110 systems we have, and the system is typically like the bookmark system handling bookmarks, or the author normalization system doing what I told before. To things like that are our systems, and we took those systems and we grabbed them from a database where we have them, and we Terraform it into services in PagerDuty. Regular services. It's not business services. We haven't made use of that yet. So each system is basically a PagerDuty service. We have about 300-400 microservices running. We were starting microservices 4 years ago when micro was really, then it was supposed to be micro. Today I see many advocates having a bit bigger services, but we didn't. We have services for everything. And we didn't want to put each service into PagerDuty because it didn't really make sense for us. Either a system works and bookmark works, or it does not work. So we wanted that granularity on our system level. So we took all the systems and we put them in there, and then we took our 10 engineering teams that manage these 100 systems and put them in there. And we also created a single entry point. Before we had integration. We had one integration per service. So you selected what integration you used. That didn't really work with 100 services. There are so many integrations. We have all the integrations in Cloudflare, then you have all the integrations on GCP, then you have all the integrations on BlazeMeter and RunScope, New Relic. So now we have one integration point per provider, one for GCP, one for Cloudflare. And we use the router there to route incoming events to the affected service.
Okay.
And that ended up with 2 rules per service. So now we are at 220 rules. So it's nothing you want to write down yourself in the GUI.
No. And so those were service level rules or global event rules for each service?
So there are global event rules, and they analyze the incoming package. So there were 2 rules per service, one to see if it's high urgency, or one to see if it's low urgency, and then one to catch the rest and put them on high urgency. So I would like a neat way where you could just, send in a message and like from the metadata directly set the severity. But I didn't find that, so I basically had to match it. And
that's smart. So you through this whole experience, you actually took what you learned and took what you did and wrote a blog post. And so and you shared kind of the Terraform code or the methodologies you took or did, the steps you took to finding your solution. You want to share some of that code with us and kind of talk through what you did? Yeah,
I can do that. Sure. Yeah, I wrote the post, the post I was looking for when I started this. You go to Stack Overflow. Is it there? No. Okay, I go to Medium. I look around. Is it there? No. Oh. And then in the end, I just had to do it myself, and it took me a long 2 weeks. So I wrote the post. So next guy only have to spend 1 week.
That is the inspiration for every blog post I've ever written.
Yeah.
Same exact story. It's if I couldn't find an answer easily, then it's like, all right, then this is obviously needed as a blog post somewhere.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so the rest of the community thanks you for helping them not have to struggle for the 2 weeks that you took to figure all that out.
When I started in the business 20 years ago, the rules was if you didn't find it on before Stack Overflow, you take a patent on it.
Right. Right.
But I think we're a bit friendlier today.
I'd like to think so.
Yes. So you asked me just before this started if I could show that, and I said, yeah, sure, I have all the code here. But then I realized that that code will basically include most of our users and stuff. So
But
in the article, I used the gist, but I was thinking maybe I could still. If you hold on a second, I can actually show you stuff, and we just avoid the files.
Yeah. Don't want to share any company secrets or anything. The beauty of being live streaming on Twitch is that when you watch other Twitch folks, it's like everyone understands you're live. So it's like, you got to get up and get the door. Like for me, I realized I left my door open, so I'm gonna go shut it real quick.
Yeah, sure. So I will share Atom.
Okay, and then I get to add you to the screen there. I guess I probably should have asked. You good for me adding you to the screen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So in the end, you will see just the text on the left side there in the menu is very small. I hope to get the other one bigger. So basically, Terraform starts with a main file.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that interesting, really, because you have seen it before.
Except it does show which providers you're using, right? So you're using the PagerDuty provider, but you're also shooting at the Google provider.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I use a Google provider to fetch the secrets that I use because we stored the PagerDuty API token is stored in a secret vault at Google.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. So yeah, that's a cool solution. I hadn't heard of people using Google for storing secrets, so that's great to know.
Okay, I can just walk through here. So our backend is Google Cloud Storage. We have a bucket there, and then we have the PagerDuty provider. And the provider Google, we say it's a secret vault. This is our project and the region.
Nice.
I'm sweaty now that there will be any keys in here.
Right. We can
My
totally...
manager will fire me on the spot, but I think I'm safe here. So we used we have an Atlantis. So this is the one that will actually grab that token.
And actually, do you mind if I ask just real briefly, talk about Atlantis real quick? I tell people, and I mentioned it many times on this show and other Terraform events that I'm at. I know how I know Terraform through being the developer on the provider. So I know how to fix the bicycle, which is Terraform. I know how to add things to the bicycle, but writing it, I'm not that experienced at writing the bicycle. So Atlantis is one of those things that like folks who ride the bicycle tend to use, right? Like it seems like everybody riding the Terraform bike uses Atlantis. So you want to just talk about that real quick?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, Terraform provides us with infrastructure as code. And what you really want to do then is to versionize that code. And then we use GitHub. So very simple. You wouldn't even expect to have Terraform files that are not in GitHub. But technically it's possible, but you don't because you want them versionized. So they're already in GitHub. And when someone wants to change something, we typically allow them to do a pull request in GitHub. And Atlantis is a plugin that do Terraform plan upon pull request, shows you the output of the Terraform plan. So as a reviewer, you can see what will happen with this pull request. And when you as a reviewer approve it, it will do Terraform apply.
Oh, okay.
That's basically a bit simplified, but actually not that much simplified. It is a very simple tool.
That's great. I should learn more about that. So it basically adds an extra layer of review, just like a pull request. How you review a pull request before you merge it into master. Atlantis lets you review the plan before it applies, and then you can just let it go.
Exactly. So
Okay.
what I did else is that you have to check out the code, and you have to do the plan, and you have to do the apply, and then you have to approve the pull request.
Got
Kind
it.
of. So now it's kind of atom. The fact that you apply it and the fact that it ends up on the main branch is uniform. And also, as a developer, I don't need a key. I don't need access rights to the bucket where we store the state.
Oh, very
So I can
nice.
tell you that Terraform state is kind of safe, but some other Terraform states contain keys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they contain the API key. We just learned the other day.
Right.
So this bucket here we want to keep secret from regular accounts only. So Atlantis uses, of course, a service account to access the state.
Got it.
So it's also a security means to have Atlantis there.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that. I'd always wondered what Atlantis was, but always smiled and nodded when people brought it up. It's like, oh yeah, I totally know what Atlantis is. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And then we have our users. I will not really open that.
Yeah, you don't need to go into showing us your user data. And honestly, if you want to just show the gists or the gists, that way if you're, because I don't want to, show off any Storytel,
No, but I'll start.
data.
So I did a module for the users.
Okay.
That was me playing around with Terraform, where you could set like the teams, because the Terraform has one entity for the user and one for the team, and the third entity for the team to user connection. So now we bundle that into the users. So when we define a user, we can just list all the teams they should be in. That looked nice on paper, but it's a bit complicated when you change both teams and users at the same time. It gets a bit confused. If anyone have any input on how to do that better, I'm all ear.
Yeah.
So we have our users here, and here we just manually add users, doing a pull request. Whoever want to add users, adds them here. We have some teams, and then we have our services, our legacy services. And here you can see Storytel platform high urgency, Storytel platform low urgency, Storytel platform user reported, which is so these were actually our old tech services, and they're still there because we are not really. There are still a lot of alerts using these integrations. The services, the new services, they will look like this, and there is no really secret here. So account audit system, account management, account security, account self-service, account infrastructure, blah, 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 blah. Consumption tracking. So here, and this here is now auto-generated, and I just named the file like that. Auto-generated, do not edit. Same with the teams. I will not open that. And then we have the Ruleset rules that are even bigger. So basically, it's if the value is account audit system and it contains a warning, then we route it to the PagerDuty service account audit system. And then the same again. But now we don't check for warning, and this here has a later position. So now we again put it on account audit system, but we put it with critical. So these are the two rules for the first service. And then comes the second service, account management. If it contains account management and it contains a warning, we put it on account management with a severity warning. And then comes the catch-all. If it contains account management and the previous one didn't catch it, we're down here, and now it's critical.
Nice.
So this here is a huge Terraform file, not something you write. You could probably have a script to generate it, but it will still be a huge amount to maintain.
Yeah. And remind me how did you? I was busy reading. You might have mentioned this already. How did you auto-generate these?
Then we have a little app, and the app is also in the gist. It's a shell script app that runs on as a cron job. So you need to specify GitHub token, name, email, Cloudflare access token, and secret. And it's very simple. This here is the entire app. It will fit on my screen. So it clones our repo where we have the Terraform files. We go into that and we configure it. We go into the Terraform folder and we run a script, generate PagerDuty Terraform. And if there were a change, we check out it, we add it, we commit it, we push it, and we create a pull request. Or else we just say nothing changed. So this is the entire here. So, and this part is, of course, the one that generates the Terraform.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you have to bear with me. I wrote this as a, like, you're experimenting, you're just writing.
Right.
It's not my proudest moment, but it's at least very easy to read. So create services. We send in our systems. So these are the Storytel systems that I talked about that becomes PagerDuty services.
Mm-hmm.
And the code looks like this.
Hey.
So I'm basically just building the Terraform files in text with the name, system name, trim it. I have to replace and with an and. So
Yeah.
I should probably have done some more elaborated URL encoding or slugification here, but we
Except for
didn't
that
have
it works.
systems that contained any other errors or any other odd characters. If one system would contain another odd character, I would need to fix this. And then it wrote to the services auto-generated do not edit. So that's it. And then we have a new one for Teams. Looks like this.
That's great.
So not that hard, really.
No. I mean, like you're saying, doing it like this by hand, yeah, you worry about, did I get all the characters right? I mean, for the HCL to be valid HCL and things like that. I'm not aware of a JavaScript library that allows you to write HCL. I know there's one for Go. I've experimented with that one a little bit, and it's nice in the sense that it lets you generate, you call certain functions and it generates the HCL for you. But you still have to learn that library, right? You have to learn what functions are available and how to kind of traverse through that and whatnot. So I've seen this before, not in JavaScript. I've seen it done in Python before, but it makes sense. I mean, especially the readability right there. I mean, I know exactly what you're doing, and I didn't have to look at the code for very long.
No, exactly. So here we have a Teams lowercase replace. So here, obviously, I replaced a empty character with a dash, and then later on I realized, there are more funny characters, so let's replace everything. That's not an A to Z. Okay, that I actually just removed.
Yeah.
If there are multiple dashes because they had multiple spaces, I removed them. So it's very. You're not supposed to handcraft regex like this, but it worked. It did a job, and I moved on. But I have a to-do somewhere to make it a little bit more robust, because new team names can arrive, new system name can arrive. Also, it's not production critical. This cron runs a couple of times per day. If it fails, I will be notified. And they added a system and I didn't get it into PagerDuty that very hour or during that day. They will get it the next day and they can start monitoring the next day. Typically, people add systems well before they are in production.
And so you set the cron, you said runs a couple times a day?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I don't remember. But,
no, it makes sense. And so when they run the cron, it's looking for the definitions. Wait, so where does it try to find? So when someone wants to add a service to PagerDuty, got it. They put it in GitHub.
No, they put actually we add a system to our database that contains all the systems and owners. And the owner consists of one accountable person and one responsible team. And that database is fetched via this API. No, sorry. Sorry. It should be here. So this here starts with a main function where we ask our syswhois to get the set of systems.
Got it. Okay. So it gets it from the database that you put the information in.
Yeah. So it will start doing that. Then it will, the things we did, it will sort the systems, or else the Terraform files may change if they get it in a different order.
Yep.
And then it will create the services, it will create the teams, it will create the Ruleset Rules. And then it's done.
Very cool.
And I had a small Docker file to just pack this up. We have the app shell script. We have a JSON encoder. So this here is even uglier, but Google Cloud Platform works with structured logs. That logs should be packaged in a JSON format. So you can see the command I run here is that I run my app and errors goes to the regular out, and then I pipe it to my JSON encoder. And now we're up for a treat. I have different, so you can put in different severities, and it will just do again some regex magic here. But yeah, it's very far from bulletproof, to be honest. But it puts in the date, it puts in the message, and it puts in the severity. So that's like a minimum for a structured log message on GCP. But if the message, the message can easily break this JSON because it's not really JSON decoded.
Got it. So by not being bulletproof, you're saying it works for what Storytel needs, but wouldn't necessarily be all possible.
No, there are room for improvements if someone wants.
Sure. But that's code in general.
Yeah.
Right. So
exactly. So, and it's also, for me, this was the first time I actually used Terraform. So it was very experimental, everything.
So what were some of the things, struggles that you might have had as you went through this?
So some of the struggles, I will join back, I guess, on your screen here.
There you go. Yeah.
Some of the struggle were, Terraform is really all or nothing. You can't mix them, and I can't really prevent people from using the GUI to go in there and add users, and that's the struggle, because people were used to do that. A lot of people. We have customer support using PagerDuty. We have customer relations, internal communications, and of course tech. So a lot of people are using there. And we also, I described that in the article, we had to break that chain of dependencies when it came to escalation policies, because we decided to put escalation policies and schedules not in Terraform, but to use the GUI, because the GUI is so strong there to visualize what the schedule looks like. So that was a bit tricky.
And that's a common thing I've heard, actually, is because schedules are so visual that people don't change them very often, right? You set a general idea for a schedule and it's pretty much set. And so they're trying to manage it in Terraform kind of felt like overkill. And so I've heard of that a lot.
You want to do an override because you're going to the swimming hole with your kids for 2 hours. You have a colleague taking those hours, and again, you don't want to do Terraform for that.
Yeah.
So in the end, I actually introduced a column in our team's database where I just hard-coded the escalation policy ID for that team. So instead of referencing, when we create a service, instead of referencing the escalation policy with a Terraform ID, I just hard-code the PagerDuty ID in there from the database. It's also visible in the. Did you get what I tried to say?
Yeah. So you're hard coding the schedule ID into the Terraform code.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could also, just for listeners and things like that, or viewers, we got viewers here. So you could also use the data source for the schedule and search for the schedule by name and then get the ID that way. But either way, you got to know either the name of the schedule or the ID of the schedule. And so either one works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. That's assuming you keep the name of the schedule the same, right? If there's a possibility that you edit the name of the schedule, suddenly that data source won't work anymore.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was a bit of a struggle is when the API and the GUI had features that Terraform did not yet.
Were there? I mean, do tell. Were there any features that you were looking for?
So yeah, so maybe that's my way in to actually see if I could contribute. I can catch you offline for that. No, but
Yeah.
we wanted to add a response play to each service.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the new setup, our plan is that we call in both one engineer on call and one incident manager. So that you're two people for higher incidents. And the plan of the incident manager is both to be able to take hard decisions, which you sometimes need, close down parts of the service for a while, but also to just be a sounding board and to take notes of what actions are taken and stuff like that. So what we did first was to add 2 escalation policies for each service that you called in, both one from the incident manager schedule and one from the engineering team schedule. But then it's enough, as soon as one person acknowledged the incident, it's acknowledged, and you don't know if the other people is coming. So we discussed with PagerDuty. They are really helpful support. And the idea was to instead put a response play that plays automatically when an incident comes to a service.
Okay.
That I did not find in the Terraform.
I know we have response play as a resource, but maybe connecting it to a service. That's the bit that you didn't see. Okay. So, okay, we have some work cut out for us on that front. It's always good to know, right? Like what needs to be added.
I discussed this with PagerDuty just last week. So yeah, it was last week I looked into this. And that would be nice. That I think that would solve our purpose to have 2 people being called in per incident from different schedules, and both of them needs to acknowledge, and you can see, did my counterpart see it? Have they acknowledged? Are they on their way? Etc.
Yeah. Okay.
So that kind of, it worked. I tested it. Yeah, it works great. And then I was going to Terraform it, and it was not there. And I didn't really think about that, but it's not always that Terraform is feature complete, because it's API is if API is first class citizens, for many companies Terraform is still a new thing, maybe not that used. I'm sure Terraform will be a first class citizen soon enough for many providers. Like API has become old days. API was second class citizen, and you didn't find stuff there. You have to do them in the GUI.
I think that's the progression, right? The progression is we're, everyone knows they need to be API first. And so like have all the UI functionality available in the API. But the next step now is making sure that not only you API first, but that you're able to support the infrastructure as code tools, whether it's Terraform, whether it's CloudFormation, whether it's Pulumi. And so that way you can make sure that people working with your API can continually work with it. They don't even have to think about it. It's just like, I need to do this thing where I'm managing all of my stuff. With Terraform, I'm managing my GCP and my PagerDuty. And so I need to have all of that there. And I'm going to expect all the resources, all the fields to be there. And so it's honestly one of my motivations is at PagerDuty is trying to get it becoming more of a first class citizen. And it is. I mean, people are starting to see, it's like, oh, wait, Terraform is being used by a lot of people, and it's really, people are relying on this thing. Yeah. And so our engineering teams and our product teams are actually becoming more and more involved with making sure that when features come out in the API, they're also making sure that it's compatible or included into the Terraform provider. Great point of that is event orchestration, is that our team that built event orchestration that just came out recently or is coming out soon is also working on the Terraform provider. So they're also going to be making sure that it's solid in there and making sure that it works. So it's just another example of how PagerDuty is taking that role of making sure that things like the Terraform provider are first class.
Yeah, because we started to discuss this. We have our what to call it, our business guy at PagerDuty that knows all of that.
Yeah,
business manager now. account manager. Sorry.
Yeah. I never
And
know what their titles are. So sorry, y'all who are those types of people. We love you, but I never remember what your title is.
Call Tom because he's a great guy. He helped us a lot.
Yeah.
Because not only was it a technical challenge, also we needed to go from 10 accounts to a lot of accounts, and he did help us a lot there. And he also brought in the tech guys. And when we discussed this early on, they said, "Well, here is the perfect fit for Terraform. Have you looked into that?" And to me, like I said, I never worked with it before. I had a close colleague that just terraformed all our GitHub setup and stuff like that, but it was still on an early stage and not rolled out. So they sold it in well. So I can see how it's getting a good spot in the light at PagerDuty.
And so which resources are you managing with Terraform? Users, teams, services, service integrations, event rules.
And event rules, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And exactly. And schedules and what did I say?
Escalation policies.
Escalation policies we're not. And exactly. And users are still handcrafted. So that's why I have this little module to help us with that, because we're not fetching users. So in the end, we could see, because in our salary system, we have a little tick box on who is on call. So technically, we should be able to just do that as well. I have a plan there, but I also know that they change these salary systems too often at regular companies.
Right. Well, especially as you grow, right? You start off using one, and then it can't handle you as you get bigger, and it can't handle you as you get bigger. So Storytel keeps growing, right? So you're going to be changing tools.
And our people's team and legal team, they just use the GUI. So if they say something nice and shiny, they grab it, and I don't know of all our integrations. So we try to keep our integrations there as small as possible. So
makes sense.
And a big thing that will happen at Storytel is that we will manage access rights based on these systems. So a team can access only their own systems, but they can only also hand out access themselves to their system to other people. So for compliance reasons, it's always tough to see, who has access to the database with users, for example.
Yeah.
And you have to limit that, and it's a lot of work to keep that. Sure, someone needs access, you have to say, okay, what team are you in? Are you really going to have access, or are you just doing a one-time thing? Can I do it for you? Document who got access, who had access when, for all of these compliance reasons, and just to keep our users safe and sound. And it will be much easier now, because we will have access based on these systems, and they're also by code, so you can see version history, exactly who was added when. You can add a commit comment, why did this user need access to our customer data, for example.
Yeah, and it's right there. You can have it all documented in one spot.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, Andreas, thank you for coming on and joining us today, talking through your experience, your setup. For those of you interested, in the chat, I've dropped a link to Andreas's blog post that outlines the journey that he took, but also the some of the code that he's sharing for the community to essentially do the same things that he did with creating these service integrations, with creating this Terraform code that allows you to set up your services, your service integrations, your event rules. And so thank you, Andreas, for that, for sharing that with our community, and also for coming on today.
Thanks a lot. I actually got the PagerDuty call right now, because I happen to be on the call tonight, but it's very rarely happened anything, so I took the chance.
All right.
It didn't look
bad. That means you got to go.
Thanks a lot for having me here. It was super interesting. I learned so much, and it's just a super interesting area to explore.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, and I'll let you grab your page, and hopefully it's not too major of an incident.
I did a quick it's all right.
Okay, good. Whew. Yeah. As Joey said, let's see a live response right now.
No,
let's not. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Andreas. And don't forget to tune in to our other Twitch streams here on this channel, and we'll see you all at Summit. And we are Going to sign off by wishing all of you an uneventful day.